Today's story reminds me of a story that I followed on True Crime Daniel, I think maybe 2 years ago. The story was about Tiopenda Joseph, who died and later reappeared in Lafia, Nasarawa State, Nigeria, and got married to Angela Agba. They even had a child, I think a boy child, and they lived together for 6 years until 2017 when an old friend of Joseph recognized him and he mysteriously disappeared with his son. If you've not watched that story, it is definitely one that you need to watch. However, this story that I'm about to share with you is much more complex and full of mystery. It's about Michael, an adventurous young British man who went on a vacation to Italy. While there in Italy, he sent a postcard to his beloved mother of him enjoying his vacation. But then the message on the postcard he sent was itself full of mystery. The message was, "Can't wait until next week to tell you about my vacation. I love you, Mom." Down below the card, he left the postscript with a smiling emoji and a message that read, "If I die and you need to confirm, look for my birthmark." Now, unfortunately, just as if he knew he was going to die, he was killed in a car accident 2 days later. For many people, that's the end of life, right? But not for Michael. 3 years after his tragic death, he somehow mysteriously reappeared in Africa and got married to Gwendolyn, and they had 3 handsome boys and a beautiful girl. While many people don't believe this kind of stories, this is Gwen's true story. The details of her 20-year marriage with Michael, which we shall be talking about in this video, will convince you that anyone can cross paths these days with someone who has come back from the dead. But as always, before we get into Gwen's story, please permit me to clarify a few things by adding some context to this story. I must say that when I first heard Gwen's story, unlike what many people would think, Michael did not fit into the definition of a ghost because after he reappeared in Africa, he much or less lived a normal life like you and me. And it's the same thing for Angela's story. Joseph Tiopenda lived a normal life until he was recognized by his friend. So I made a little research and I came across the word revenant. As I dug deeper into my research, I found out something interesting. Revenants are different from ghosts, and Michael had all the characteristics of a revenant. So the question I want us to answer before I start with the story is, who is a revenant and who is a ghost? In order to better understand the story, it's important that we clarify this question first. Now, if you make a simple Google search, you'll find out that a revenant is someone who has come back from the dead. If you also look up for the definition of a ghost, you will discover revenants are different from ghosts in many ways. The first difference is related to physical presence. While revenants often have a physical form with tangible bodies, ghosts on the other hand lack a physical form and are often depicted as ethereal or translucent. The second difference I found between revenants and ghosts is related to their purpose. While revenants usually return to the living world with a specific mission such as completing an unfinished business like making a family, ghosts on the other hand may haunt specific locations, objects or people. Another thing I found out is that the purpose of ghosts can vary widely, from seeking closure or delivering a message to simply being trapped or lost between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Finally, another important difference I found between revenants and ghosts concerns their personality and memories. In the majority of stories that I've heard, revenants often retain their personality, memories and motivations from their former life. On the other hand, while some ghosts retain their personalities and memories, the majority appear as residual hauntings, repeating certain actions without awareness of their surroundings. For me, I actually understand when someone tells me that they don't believe this kind of stories. But then the truth is that there are more and more revenant stories these days in Africa, making us question what we really know about the afterlife. Stories like this are very important because you can learn from those who've lived these experiences so that you can avoid the mistakes they made. So with this context, grab your popcorn and let's get started with the story. The story begins when Gwen was 12 years old and she moved in with her stepmother and her daughters. Unlike what you might be thinking, Gwen's bonus mom was a great mom. According to Gwen, her stepmom did not miss an opportunity to caution her and her sisters about womanhood. But one of her wishes for just the two of them was very strange. Gwen's stepmom was so sure that Gwen and her eldest daughter shall one day get married to white men. She even said on numerous occasions that she would be disappointed if they didn't. Now you can understand the kind of pressure that this can cause, right? But then to Gwen's relief, her stepsister did fall in love with a French guy and they got married when Gwen was 15. This was good news because at least things were going the way Gwen's stepmother had planned. So naturally, Gwen was very happy for her sister and she could not wait for her own turn to meet her own husband. But then 3 years passed and Gwen was still yet to meet her own knight in shining armor. And that's how, even though age was still very much on the young girl's side, she stressed over the subject of marriage every single day, even when she was at school. Every day she went to the beach behind her school to hide from her friends and think of how disappointed her stepmom would be if she did not marry a white man. To date, Gwen does not really understand why her stepmother always insisted that they get married to white men. But what's sure is that this strange wish attracted Michael into Gwen's life, confirming the power of declarations over the lives of her children. One day, Gwen was coming back from school with her friends when a car pulled over in front of them. Initially, they thought the white guy wanted to ask for directions, but instead he called her by her name, Gwendolyn. It sounded odd to the young girl because no one calls her that except those who knew her very well. Even her teachers and her friends call her Gwen. So how did this guy know that name? The guy got out of the car and said, "It's me. I've been looking for you everywhere. Thank God I found you." Gwen was surprised and said, "Are you kidding me? I don't know you." Now her friends stood there watching the drama, but then Gwen was serious. She had never met this guy before. According to Gwen's description, he was different from all the other guys she had met before. He was handsome, not perhaps in the conventional sense, if you know what I mean, but then he had that appearance that could make him stand out of the crowd. In his smile, she saw his modesty and humility. Right there, as Gwen confessed, she knew he was the one. Besides, that was what she has been waiting for all throughout, right? A white man. That's how he asked to accompany them, and they accepted his offer. That day, Gwen's stepmother had sent her on an errand. At the shop, her new friend was so generous. He paid a bill of about 280,000 francs CFA, which I must say is quite impressive in this part of Africa. After the shopping, he wanted to take Gwen home to her parents, but she was ashamed of her neighborhood, so she asked him to leave her at the main entrance into her street. Before she stepped out of the car, he gave her his card. On it, she saw Michael. That was all she was interested in seeing at that moment because she had not even asked him his name. He also took off from his neck his medallion and gave it to her, saying, "Please keep this with you all the time." In the medallion, there was a photo of him as a kid. Then he added, "Call me." And that's how before he drove off, he warned her with a smile. "If after 3 days you don't call me, I'll find you." Now 3 days passed and she did not call. But then guess who she saw coming down to their house with her cousin? Of course it was Michael. After 3 days, just as he had promised, he came back to the main entrance to her street, and by chance, or let's say by fate, he met Gwen's cousin who brought him home. And that's how he introduced himself to Gwen's stepmom, who happily welcomed him, and that's how they started dating. After about 8 months, Michael was finally ready to make their relationship official. But then, surprisingly, according to Gwen, he said he had lost all of his documents and he needed to make a declaration of lost documents. This was odd, right? But not unheard of. So Gwen accompanied him to the British High Commission and he was able to get everything he needed to get married. 1 month later, they finally got married and everything changed for Gwen. As Gwen affirms, saying Michael was a good husband is an understatement. He was a fierce and a strong protector of all the people he loved. One thing that also made him stand out was the fact that he followed his heart and he did what he knew was right. Every day he will encourage her to invest so that she can have something to fall back to if he was not around. That's how Gwen invested in a lot of real estate, which she's still benefiting from till date. Also, throughout their marriage, as Gwen acknowledges, whenever Michael had the chance, he did not miss an opportunity to spoil his wife. They traveled around the world, even to Dubai in 2003 when the United Arab Emirates was not yet a popular vacation destination as it is today. The only country he did not visit was his home country, Britain. And also bizarre was the fact that he did not talk much about his family for many reasons. But as strange as that sounded, I must accept life with Michael was great, as Gwen confessed. It was even better because after 2 years, Gwen gave birth to their first son Archie, then later Otto, Harry, and finally Freya, their only girl. After the 19th anniversary, Gwen started noticing Michael had some really strange behaviors. He started locking himself in his home office, something he usually did not do. Also, it's true that Michael always told his kids that he loved them, but then this time it was getting more frequent. Gwen even surprised him on several occasions crying, something she had not seen ever since they met when she was in high school. As if that was not enough, one day out of the blue, he told Gwen that his time was up. He said he was going to take up a new assignment. Gwen did not understand what really he was getting at, but then she told him that was not a problem. "I will go with you anyway," she assured him. But then he said in tears, "You can't go with me." Now, in Gwen's naive mind, she thought he was commissioned to a very remote area of the world, maybe somewhere in the Amazon where he did not want to go with his family. But what was interesting was the fact that Michael told his wife that he would like the entire family to go with him on a vacation to Britain. Because, as he said, that was the point of departure. Now, departure to where? Now, Gwen was not just getting it because that was another sign. Anyway, Gwen enthusiastically prepared the family for this long-awaited vacation. A week later, they landed at the Gatwick airport. At the airport, Michael rented a car. When they got into the car, Michael made sure that Gwen saw him enter the address of their destination into the built-in GPS system of the car before they started their 2-hour drive. So after about an hour, Michael stopped along the way to get some provisions. He asked his wife and kids to stay in the car because he will be back in 5 minutes. But then 5 minutes turned to 30 minutes and there was no sign of him coming back. That's how Gwen now decided to look for him in the shop that he entered, but then he wasn't there. She also looked for him in the public toilets, but then he was nowhere to be found. That's how they ended up waiting for 45 minutes more and he was still not back. So with the tired children in the car, Gwen made the decision to get on the wheel and drive to the destination that Michael had entered in the GPS system. Certainly, he was going to meet them there, so she thought. To some people, that's normal, right? But if you've heard Revenant stories before, you will know that that is not a good sign at all. When they arrived at their destination, Gwen did not know the surprise waiting for her, so she rang and Michael's mother answered. She told Michael's mom she was Michael's wife and kind of explained how they got separated with Michael about an hour ago. But then she did not get the response that she expected. Michael's mom told her, I don't understand you. My son died 21 years ago. What are you talking about? The more Gwen tried to explain herself, the more Michael's mother became offended. That's how she called her husband, who was inside, to come and hear Gwen's story for himself. She also got on the phone, called her 2 sons and her daughter, then she finally called the police. Yeah, because what would this woman be talking about? Her son died many years ago, so what's going on? But then Michael's father, after listening to Gwen's story, he was shocked, but then he asked his wife to allow Gwen and the children to enter the house. But then as soon as they got into the house, I swear their dog started barking uncontrollably, allowing Michael's dad no option but to take him to the backyard. When he came back, he gave Gwen and her children water to drink. Then he explained how Michael died in a car accident many years ago. As you will imagine, Gwen was totally confused and scandalized at the same time. Unfortunately for her, the police finally came and they explained to her why she had to leave. So that's how Michael's father encouraged her to lodge in a hotel not far from the house because Michael's sister had called and insisted that she would like to meet them the next day. That night, as you'll imagine, Gwen found excuses to console her children as she pondered over what happened during the day. Because no one believes that something like this can happen to them, right? And even when it happens, it always feels like it's a dream. But then, Gwen was not the only one thinking. Michael's younger sister, Freya, could not also wait to resolve the mystery. As she drove all night, she recalled a dream in which Michael told her about his family, so she knew that there was definitely some truth in what Gwen was saying. When she arrived, she went straight to the hotel to pick up Gwen and her children so that they could go back home and resolve the mystery once and for all. And this is when things begin to make sense. Because from the look of things, Michael had already prepared many things in advance. When Freya met Gwen's children, what was surprising was not only the fact that Freya was also the name of Gwen's daughter, but there was a striking resemblance between aunt and niece. The only thing that distinguished the two of them was their hair type because, of course, Gwen's daughter is a métisse. That was the first thing that Gwen noticed. Secondly, as soon as they got into the house, the same dog who barked uncontrollably the previous day started again. This time, he was all over the children. He was so agitated that he knocked off some pictures on the console table, and behold, only Michael's picture fell. No one noticed, but Gwen did. Now, we can't say for sure what the dog was seeing or what he saw in the children. But then we know that dogs are mystery animals. But then what was interesting was the fact that the dog did not stop there. He went inside and came back with an envelope in the sitting room. As they calmed down the dog and tidied the mess that he had created, Michael's mom picked up the envelope and kept it on the console table. When the dog was finally taken to the backyard where he continued to bark, Michael's mom was still not going to buy Gwen's story. However, she was yet to be shocked. When Gwen introduced the kids, her first son, Archie, bears the name of Michael's father. Otto and Harry bear the names of Michael's brothers. But that's not all. As you already know, Gwen's daughter bears the same name as her aunt. While everyone else saw this as too much of a coincidence, Michael's mom was still not going to fall for Gwen's story. Then Freya remembered her mother of the postcard that Michael sent before his death. So she went inside to bring the postcard, but then she came back surprised she could not find the card. After a moment, she saw the envelope of the card on the console table. She passed it to Gwen to see it for herself. When Gwen read the postscript at the bottom of the card, she broke down and cried bitterly. The postscript talked of a birthmark, and she knew that all 4 of her children have the same birthmark just above the right hip. That's how she asked the children to show their birthmarks. Yet, Michael's mother was still nodding her head in disagreement. Because come to think of it, this is much more of a movie, right? So finally, Gwen took off the medallion that Michael gave her the first day that he met her, and then she gave it to Michael's mom. When she opened it, she broke down in tears, and for the first time, she accepted the fact that Gwen had met Michael somehow after his death, because there was no way she could have had that medallion. Even though Michael's mom had agreed that Gwen could have possibly met Michael after his death, the next day she proposed that the children take a DNA test, which they all did, and the results came back positive. That's when Michael's mom considered that the case was resolved. And out of caution, Michael's family did not tell the hospital nor people who were not close to the family the real reason behind the test to avoid negative publicity. That's how Gwen's children got to be accepted into the family. Today, they live with Michael's parents in Europe while Gwen has gone back to Africa. After Gwen's experience with Michael's family, she had a lot of unanswered questions. She was terrified of the idea of meeting face to face again with Michael one day. And behold, you won't imagine, one day, he finally came, but this time in her dream. He told her he had no choice other than to go. He also explained that he had stayed longer than he was permitted because he had a special bond with Gwen and her children. He also said the love they shared had affected him so badly that he has refused to take the same kind of mission in his new assignment because he won't survive another emotional breakdown. For that reason, he has been assigned a much more difficult task which he prefers instead of falling in love again. Now, just like you, I'm asking myself, who has assigned him this difficult task he is talking about? Well, I guess we will never know for sure, right? But if you have any idea, please let us know in the comment section. Today, looking back, Gwen recognizes that there are a few things that make sense to her now that Michael is gone. Michael, as she remembers, was a very normal person. He did not keep late nights or behave strangely at night. He loved sports and he went for sports all the time. He ate like anyone else, and there are still photos of him and his family. However, one thing Gwen never saw for 20 years they spent together was his blood. Gwen remembers that she got pregnant 2 years after they got married because she had difficulties conceiving, but each time she went to the hospital, Michael never accompanied her there. He was never sick, never wounded himself, or was never in a situation in which he bled. Even more intriguing is the fact that all 4 of their children have very rare blood groups. In fact, 2 are B negative and the other 2 are AB negative. If you are informed about blood types, you know that while B negative is found in only 1.5% of the world's total population, AB negative is only found in 0.6% of the world's population. In fact, these blood groups are so rare that all 4 of their children are registered in a database of people with very rare blood types. It's also very important that I mention that all 4 of these children are in very good health and they are normal like any other children. And this is Gwen's true story. However, to conclude this video, it's important that we highlight some key takeaways from the story. One thing that is common in all Revenant stories is the trauma that victims go through when they finally uncover the truth. You will agree with me that it's very difficult to live with the reality that you got married to someone who died and came back from the dead. And that's for you, right? What about the children? Just imagine that you are told that your father or mother was a revenant. That's one reality that anyone will find it difficult to live with. And that's why I won't say it enough, but then it's important, very important, that you know your partner. You know who your partner is before you commit into a relationship. If you are familiar with Revenant stories, you will notice that Revenants always come back because their life was cut short, especially by an accident, giving them no time to complete some unfinished business, for instance, making a family, as it was the case with Michael. So if you have someone who died abruptly and that person always wanted to have a family, don't be surprised if you are told that someone saw him somewhere. Oh, what am I saying? Anyways, please just take that with a pinch of salt. I'm just trying to make sense of this mystery. In the story, Gwen talked about her stepmom's wish for her and her stepsister to get married to white men. Unfortunately, we don't know why she said so or the motivations behind this wish of hers, but the truth is that this declaration, whether knowingly or unknowingly, invited Michael into Gwen's life, confirming the power of words over the lives of our children. And that's why you must be careful of the declarations you make over your children. It's always better to declare positively, even on stubborn children, because the negative declarations you make out of anger will live to haunt them. Many Revenant stories, including Gwen's story, highlight the importance of thoroughly investigating a potential partner's background before marriage, or even before having children, especially when they are from a different nationality, and especially if you don't know a lot about them, for instance, your friends or family members. Also, one thing that made sense to me in the story was when Gwen talked about Michael's lost documents. This makes sense because he did not enter the country legally, so there was no way he could have a valid passport and visa. Besides, remember that a death certificate was already issued in his name. The only way to rectify all this was to present himself at the British High Commission. And who knows the explanations he gave there. And that's why it's important to be curious about your partner's story, right? Asking questions and trying to see if their narration is logical, if you understand what I mean. Another common theme in Revenant stories is the fact that the Revenant always has the desire to take the loved ones of their second life back to the people of their former life. But then they never want to assist in the introduction, so they always excuse themselves just before reaching their family home or their hometown, and they are never seen again. And most often, interestingly, they leave clues by giving some details that will make their family believe the fact that they are alive somewhere but unfortunately cannot come back. So if you find yourself in a similar situation where you are going to meet your in-laws for the first time and your partner excuses themselves and delays to come back, especially when you are close to your destination, it might be wise to proceed with caution and consider the possibility of unexpected outcomes. In many Revenant stories, even though it is not the case with Michael, it is said that if a Revenant meets someone who recognizes them from their former life, they are forced to instantly disappear or mysteriously die a second time. And that is it. These are all the lessons I could put together, but then wait. I have a quiz for you on this topic, so take the quiz and let's see how many points you get. Question number 1. Complete the blank. A Revenant is A. One that returns after a long absence. B. One that returns after death. And C. All of the above. C is the right answer. If you refer to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a revenant is one who returns after death or a long absence. The word revenant is actually borrowed from the French verb revenir, which in English means to return. According to the statistics from this website, in 2016, the word revenant was among the top lookups because the word was prominently featured in the title of a movie, The Revenant, that was released in 2015. If you've not watched that movie, I recommend it even though it talks of someone who came back after a long absence. Question number 2. Fill in the blank with the correct answer. It is said that one difference between revenants and ghosts is the fact that revenants often come back with a specific mission or purpose, which can be A. Fulfill a curse. B. Complete an unfinished business. C. Seek revenge. And D. All of the above. D is the right answer. However, in many Revenant stories I've heard personally, Revenants come back to finish an unfinished business because most often their life was cut short by an accident, leaving them not enough time to do what they would have loved to do, for instance, getting married and having children. Question number 3. What did Michael's family do on Michael's grave after they recognized Gwen's children? A. They dug up the grave to verify if Michael was in the grave. B. They modified Michael's date of death. And C. None of the above. This was actually a trick question, and I know you might have been tempted to choose C. I intentionally did not mention this in the story. But then the right answer is B. Michael's family modified the date of death or sunset on Michael's tombstone with the infinity sign, symbolizing the fact that he lives forever. Thank you for participating in the quiz. I really want to believe that you learned something new today. If that was the case and you love mystery stories like this, I invite you to like the video, and why not share it with someone who might benefit from it. Also, if you've not yet subscribed to our channel yet, please do so and do turn on the notification so that you shall be notified when next we publish another story. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and never underestimate the power of the unknown. May your curiosity lead you to uncover the truth.